Imagine a platform where some of Britain's biggest stars have the opportunity to reflect and celebrate their biggest professional accomplishments in a lovely, relaxed, chatty space. Since 2016, Josh Barry's Beyond the Title has celebrated the great and good of entertainment from showbiz legends to rising stars and everyone in between, who have each provided an insight into their remarkable careers in the public eye. So join Josh and the team as another significant figure in entertainment shares their unique anecdotes and stories exclusively on Beyond the Title.
Okay. Through doing the podcast, we've learned that inspiration for a comedian can be as diverse and wide-ranging as comedy itself. Who were your heroes growing up, and how did they shape what you wanted to do?
That's a great question. I had a lot of different comedy heroes. I think they might have changed as I sort of grew up, but certainly the most significant ones that I can remember were people like Jim Carrey and Eddie Murphy, also maybe sort of Leslie Nielsen, and the Pythons. I think they were all my comedy heroes. Jim Carrey was, the films that came out in, I think it was 94, there was that run of The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, and Ace Ventura. And that for me was, something that I just found it was the funniest thing in the world. Whereas I had also been brought up, like, from my parents' love of comedy with the Pythons, with Blackadder, who I think were a sort of natural progression to that. And then also Rick Mayall, the Young Ones and Bottom were both just huge, anarchic, stupid shows that I loved so much.
So who's the first comedian you saw live?
Ooh. Well, I think the first comedian that I saw live would have been it would have probably been a comedian that was performing in a panto. So it wouldn't be quite the same as going to see them do their stand-up. But I think that would have been the first access that I saw that I had growing up in Birmingham to sort of seeing comedy live on stage. However, the first sort of comedians that I can remember paying to go and see, it would have been someone at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, I think. I sort of started going up there. I would have been about, I don't know. I don't know how old I was, but I remember just having it suddenly, like it was like turning on a faucet. I hadn't realized that going to see live stand-up comedy shows was a thing, and then suddenly they're available everywhere. And you could get so intimate with them. It was real small rooms. You can enjoy the comedy, and it made it all seem a lot more approachable and accessible. Which then led me to performing in comedy myself.
It leads us on nicely. The Edinburgh Fringe has long since been a significant rite of passage for any performer attempting to make it in comedy. But in recent years, I've spoken to a few people who have made their name outside of the festival. So in your opinion, what's still the appeal of Edinburgh, and what place does it have in 21st century comedy?
That is another fantastic question. Edinburgh is always going to be a special festival for me. Edinburgh's kind of become interchangeable with the term August. That's instead of asking people, certainly friends that are other performers, it's like, oh, what are you doing for Edinburgh? What are you doing over August? Or are you having the month off to go and have a holiday? But yeah, it is. Although there's lots of brilliant things there for it, and I think it really is still a wonderful place where people can try out new ideas and see a lot of brilliant comedy, theatre, dance. You know, different types of performance that you wouldn't otherwise experience, even if you live in, London, Manchester, Birmingham, any of the sort of big cities that have a vibrant sort of arts scene. You still wouldn't necessarily get access to the particular types of performance that you see at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. So I have a lot of love for it. However, I think it does need updating. I think it needs some kind of change. If you talk to any performers that are regularly up there, I think the most common point that they bring up is it is super expensive. it's very hard, and that can be whether you're a performer going up there, trying to seek out accommodation for a month, or if you're an audience member who just wants to come up for a few days, it's becoming prohibitively expensive. And there might be enough people that are willing to pay the money, that are able to pay the money at the moment, but that will have a negative impact in terms of the the sort of accessibility, the type of stories that are being brought to stages. So it's generally, I don't think it's good for the arts, and I don't think it's good for our sort of cultural makeup. Hopefully something can and will change, and there'll be steps that are put into place in order to keep it available. I don't know what that is, but perhaps some kind of collaboration between the government there and the fringe society themselves. But if it doesn't evolve, then I think sadly it will face other cities stepping in and taking the sort of clear desire that there is for new voices, stories that we aren't hearing so much in TV and radio. And it would be a real shame if that was taken away from Edinburgh, because it's such a beautiful city and with such a fantastic history as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Josh said that he's always really wanted to go, but it's especially in recent years when we've looked at it, the logistics just seem impossible. Because, like you said, there's so much on, there's so much to watch, and unless you're going to commit to going up for the whole month, it's so hard to just go up for a weekend, because you could miss the people that you really want to see by a day or so either way. And then if you leave it long enough to know when people are playing and where, the accommodation's long gone, and anything you did get, you'd be paying thousands for at that point.
Absolutely. And I mean, as much as even the most dedicated arts fans, whether you're huge, there's loads of great stuff up there to see. But when you have to sort of balance, well, I'd be paying over £1,000 just to go up for a few days, with the travel, with the accommodation, it's hundreds of pounds, versus a pretty nice holiday you could buy for yourself there, or even sort of go away with some friends. That's a tough competition, and it's not one that the arts are necessarily going to be able to win, which is a shame, because there's so much good stuff there. It's a way to discover some brand new artists you might not have heard of, and see some of your favorite performers from stage and screen as well.
Yeah. And obviously, for a performer's point of view, an opportunity to sort of launch a career, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Josh's next question is moving on to sort of about yourself as a performer.
Ah,
And the first question is, do you remember your first gig? And how did it make you feel?
wow. Well, if we're going back to like my first professional gig, it was I wasn't basically, I've always been a little show off. I've always liked performing. Like my first real performances were probably in my living room to aunties and uncles that have come around doing little magic shows. I had a Paul Daniels magic set, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, when I was about 11, I was in a production of Oliver. And I grew up in Birmingham. I didn't really know that being an actor was, or a comedian was a possibility. I knew that people did it and they presumably made a living, but I had no idea how that was workable. And they had these open auditions. And I remember going down to the custard factory in Birmingham and queuing up with my mum and going in and singing a song from Oliver. And I got the gig, and I was performing for, I think it was about 2 months. It certainly felt like a significant period of time. And you know, I didn't have a speaking role. I just came in, sang the songs. But that from that moment, there was something just so electric about being on stage, being in a production, having people come and see it, working together with other people that it never left me. So when I went to drama school and trained to be an actor, I very quickly got into the comedy scene, doing a lot of not so much stand up, but like a lot of improv, character comedy, solo shows, and two-hander sort of double act shows, and that's what I really thrive on. I think that relationship with the audience and the other people that you're sharing the stage with.
Yeah.
Um, you're just creating something great together.
Yeah. So Josh's next question is actually, you possibly answered it, but doing the podcast for almost 8 years, we noticed that there's normally two sets of people, especially in comedy, and performers within comedy. People are either funny as kids and built upon it, and the thrill of getting laughs, or people that were slightly more introverted as a child, but spent time digesting and analysing life. In your opinion, what best describes you? I think we might have the answer for that one already.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I've already. There's no way I can pretend to be the analytical, interesting.
Just a downright show off.
Yeah, as much as I wish that were the case, I'm afraid it's far sort of more selfish and predictable reasons that I went into show business.
Yeah. So talking about your shows, your UK tour was extended into 2024 due to massive popular demand. As a child of the 90s, your cultural references and relationship to culture are going to be similar to Josh's. In your opinion, what was it about that decade that made culture so important, and what impact has it had on entertainment output of today?
I mean, well, for me, there was just we didn't know any better. It was just what was on TV. But looking back now, it feels like it really was a heyday. And that's not to diminish the things that are coming out now. There's lots of brilliant, performers creating amazing stuff, and it's going out on lots of different platforms. But there was something really unifying about everyone, I think, watching the same comedy output, and it being of such a high quality. Things like The Fast Show or Harry Enfield and Chums, they were just phenomenal. And I'd watch them and then go into school the next day and try and recreate them. Just be sort of talking with friends, riffing on what we'd seen the night before, trying to take the same joke and apply it to different situations. And then, in terms of the shows that I've been doing lately, it's, Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Friends. For me, they were both pivotal TV shows. Friends was this just behemoth, this massive thing that you really had to know what was going on. Otherwise, everyone was talking about it. It was like the equivalent of a water cooler moment, but at high school.
Yeah.
And I think Buffy was a bit more niche. It was a bit more of a cult following, but still really funny, especially for something that wasn't out and out meant to be a comedy. Just a great drama. And it pulled on so many of the other things I loved. The music of the time, the bands that featured at the Bronze were fantastic. And the fashion, it was so aspirational for a kid growing up in Birmingham to see. I was a little bit younger, I was about sort of 10, 11 when it first started airing. But to see like 16-year-olds in America, I thought, oh, it's going to be so cool. That's what my life's going to be like when I'm 16.
Yeah. The next question perfectly leads on from that. Looking at your live work, there is a strong theme of American TV influences. What was it about that style that appeals to you, and what are the differences between American and British television and the way that you can adapt it into your work?
Yeah, well, I think there's something about the American TV and film output that is glossier, and that's probably because it's higher budget, they have more money. And that affects everything, like right down to the creative process. You know, they have writers' rooms, they have a team of writers working on a sitcom. And it all just looks fantastic. It doesn't always mean that American productions are better than the British ones, but they're certainly different. You know, we have 1 or 2 writers working on 6 episodes, and that's the season. They have a team that put out, you know, anything between 12 and 24 per season. It just feels bigger and grander, and there's more material there to sort of fall in love with, I think.
Was
You know,
that
if
go on? Sorry, go
I was going to say, if you compare some of the best British sitcoms or the most revered British sitcoms, you look at, I don't know, Faulty Towers, fantastic, hilarious. What, 12 episodes in
on.
total? I mean, that absolutely shocking, because it seems there's so many, you know, quotable moments. Perhaps a better reference point would be like Only Fools and Horses, because, you know, Friends did 10 seasons, Fools did, I don't know how many, but it must have been a lot. It certainly seems like it went on throughout. Well, it's been a constant in I think most Brits' lives.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved the difference. There was something kind of exotic and enticing about America. I was a bit of a Yankophile growing up. It's in our music. It's in the films and TV that we watch. So anything that sort of transported me there was something that I was instantly drawn to.
So Josh was never really into Buffy or anything like that, but for some people it was huge. It was almost like a religion. When creating a comedy show, was that the things that you just spoke about there? Were they the sort of appeal of doing something like Buffy and feeling confident that you could make a show around it? And how conscious are you when you do something like that, that the subject matter might also exclude some of your audience as well as entice them?
Yeah, I mean, it is Buffy compared to Friends, they're definitely very different beasts. There's a lot of similarities. I mean, they came out at the same sort of time. They focus on certain parts of America and sort of youth culture in like slightly different ways. But whereas Friends has a very broad fan base, I think you'd be quite hard pushed to find someone who's never heard of Friends. You know, not everyone's a super fan, but largely they know who the main characters are. They have an idea of what it's about. Buffy is a bit more niche. I mean, it still has a huge fan base, but the way that I sort of think of the different audiences that I play to is that the Friends fans have the t-shirts, whereas the Buffy fans have the tattoos. So it's although it might be a smaller audience, it's a deeper connection that they have, and it is more niche, but it's that connection comes from lots of different elements. I mean, doing the show, something that's been brilliant to discover is the connection that it has with the LGBTQ plus community, and not just the representation of Willow as a lesbian and the relationship with Tara there, but also Buffy herself being someone with this secret power that she can't reveal, but that makes her, you know, strong and capable of fighting these demons. It's a show about, you know, high school as hell. And for anyone that's been a bit different, been not quite mainstream in any way, I think it's quite easy to relate to. And it's not something that exists just in high school, of course. It can become part of your identity. The things that happen at school do decide the kind of person that you turn into in certain cases. So dealing with heroes and villains, and playing on some of those you know, myths and legends that have lasted thousands of years in European folklore, or even sort of Greek mythology. It's brilliant to see how it's all been kind of boiled down into one little pop culture comedy pot. And yeah, it's I think although it can be quite niche, it does have a broad appeal. as long as we don't get too nerdy with it. As long as we sort of show reverence enough for the super fans, but keep it open and accessible enough for people who are coming along with their mate who's the true Buffy fan there.
Yeah. So similar to that, then tell us about the Olivier Award nominated Potted Potter and the amazing success across the pond.
Oh yeah, I mean, Potted Potter is such a fun show. I'm so proud to have been associated with it. This was written by two of my good friends, Dan Clarkson and Jeff Turner, and I joined it. When was that? I don't know, quite a few years ago, and I learned so much by doing it. It's effectively a two-person show retelling all of the Harry Potter books, movies put on stage by two idiots. And yeah, we had the amazing opportunity to tour all around the United States, all around Canada. We're going to Australia soon with the show. And there's lots of different casts. So I was just in one cast with my good friend Scott Hoatzen. And it was a real sort of, I think it was a good lesson in how to do parody, because people would be quite apprehensive. I mean, Harry Potter fans, they are legion. You don't want to mess around with them. But once they realize that it's made by fans for fans, everyone gets on board with it. And it's just a fun, silly, stupid show. And that's really was a big inspiration for me writing Friend, the One With Gunther, and Buffy Revamped. In fact, I wrote Friend while I was on tour with Potted Potter.
Wow.
We'd done a 4-month stint in Las Vegas performing what is really a family show in not really a family environment, which is very interesting. And then each night I come back and write my little one-man Friends parody.
Yeah. So beyond the sort of comedy and improv work, you've presided over some of our best love adverts. As a performer, what's the process of honing a strong and individual voice? And do you ever get recognised just for your voice?
Ooh, I tell you what, every now and then someone will say, "Oh, you sound really familiar," which is odd, but yeah, I mean, most people will have heard me at some point. I've largely actually because of I did a stint doing the idents for Cartoon Network. So and annoyingly, they sort of own my voice. So if you tune in now, I'm not getting paid for it anymore, but they're still using my introductions. But yeah, I mean, voice acting is something that's really fun to do. I love doing it, and it's I think it's brilliant for actors and comedians to get a chance to flex those muscles. And also it means that you can make some money without affecting your sort of brand, I guess. Not that I mean, I guess my brand is just being an idiot at this point, professional idiot, which is fine. But I think other people that are perhaps if they're a very serious actor, or if they're a bit more of an edgy stand-up comedian, doing an advert for who knows, Hungry Hippos, probably wouldn't play well with their audience. But on audio, you manage to sort of get around that. So it's a lot of fun, and I'm always happy to do it.
Josh said we interviewed Peter Dickinson, who's the X Factor man.
Oh yeah, of course.
In the interview, he was really normal, just had a completely different voice, and then he's like switches on X Factor man, and then
Oh
completely different voice.
wow.
Yeah.
See, like he has one of the most iconic voices
Yeah.
that I think has been between him and Matt Berry. I think that is like the whole of British voiceover there.
Sorry, who? Alan Didico.
I'm not sure, but there's like there are certain voices that I think people they establish this particular type, this character in their voice, and then I mean I've been in the room before where people go, oh yeah, what we're going for is kind of like this guy, and I always think, well, why didn't you just ask that guy to do it?
Yeah. But we interviewed Simon Greenall as well. He's the voice of the Compare the Meerkat.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
Mental.
I mean, but they are like sometimes adverts just go on to have a life of their own.
Yeah.
And if they're fun and if they're funny and if people get a kick out of them, then I think that's great. Because, anything to avoid, advert breaks are always sort of boring. People go and sort of, stick the kettle on. But if you can make people laugh, certainly in like a 30-second chunk, then I think why not?
Yeah. So looking back at your career, what's been your proudest achievement so far?
Wow. Interesting. I think for me, it's often about the relationships that I experience and build over the along the way. Some of my favorite shows that I've ever worked in haven't gone on to, I mean, I love doing Buffy, I love doing Friend. They're both shows that I'm very proud of. They've toured around the world performing in like I think we're taking Buffy to the Manchester Opera House, so it's going to be nearly 2,000 seats. That's a huge place to play, and I love it. But I also do an improv show called Battle Acts, and we'd perform at the Edinburgh Fringe for years in like a 60-seater room, and even if it's sold out, that's still only 60 people. But I was performing on stage with brilliant performers that I absolutely loved. And I did another show called the 1 Hour Plays, which is another improvised thing, but working with a seamstress live on stage and a writer live on stage and a musician. It was just really great. And again, playing to very small places. So in terms of the things that I really enjoyed and the things that really influenced me, I think it's shows like that. Yeah. Because you never know whether you're going to have a hit on your hands. You never know whether you're going to get paid for something that you create, certainly at the start. So I think the one thing that you can control is who you make work with and who you spend your time with. And that's where great friendships, great relationships blossom and develop. And just bringing it back to the Edinburgh Fringe, that's what crucially I think my favorite thing about it is the people that you get to spend time with and the experiences that you get to have.
So the last question, what's next for Brendan Murphy?
Big question. Well, hopefully lots of things are next for me. I'm about to go on tour with Buffy Revamped, so that will be touring the UK from, I think we open now in Worthing on the 10th of Feb, and then we run until the end of March. There may well be some more Buffy and Friend dates coming up. Oh, I should say that although I'm not performing Friend, a fantastic actor called Joseph Maudsley is going to be doing the UK tour. In fact, they open tonight in Chester. And and he's another potted potter guy. I've seen him on stage countless times. He's brilliant. He's also done the Reduced Shakespeare Company and things like that. So both those shows are going out on tour. I'm writing other shows, so there may well be another parody. Hopefully I can present to you guys maybe before the year is out. And I'm working on a Christmas show as well with Dan Clarkson, one of the writers of Potted Potter. So fingers crossed, Christmas 2024, somewhere in the UK, you'll be able to come and see a ridiculous Christmas parody show that will be full of joy and laughter and idiocy from start to finish.
Oh, yeah.
Josh said what he's saying to everyone is don't go and see a pantomime, go and see you instead.
Well, yeah, completely. Yeah, forget Panto. Well, see, okay, so I watched Pantos growing up, but we weren't really a Panto family. So it you know, for some people, it's the lifeblood of the UK. It's Christmas. It's not Christmas without a Panto. However, I think it is worthwhile having a few comedy shows that still tick those boxes, that can be family friendly and enjoyable, but without without sticking to those same 6 stories that they roll out every bloody time.
Yeah.
So yeah, options. Not knocking the Pantos, but if we can steal their audience, we certainly will.
Okay. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. It's lovely talking to you guys.